the distress signal arrived during dinner. Lieutenant Commander Yusuf Okonkwo was halfway through his meal when the alert chimed through the mess hall of the UES Persistent. Around him, tired crew members looked up from their plates with the weary expressions of people who had heard too many alarms in their lives. The Persistent was an old ship. 15 years in service had left her scarred and patched, held together by the skill of her engineers and the stubbornness of her crew. She was not fast, she was not powerful, but she was reliable, and that counted for something in the cold emptiness between stars. Captain Diana Reyes reached the bridge before anyone else. She was a small woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. The crew respected her not because she was brilliant, but because she was honest. She never lied to them about the odds. "What do we have?" she asked, sliding into her command chair. Specialist Amara Diallo, the youngest officer on the ship, pulled up the signal on her screen. Her hands were shaking slightly. "It's from Sorvani Prime, Captain. They're asking for help." The Sorvani were a peaceful species. They had no warships, no weapons, no desire to fight anyone. They were scholars and artists who had refused to join the hegemony's expansion across the galaxy. The hegemony did not take rejection well. Reyes read the message twice. A fleet of 47 hegemony warships was approaching Sorvani Prime. They would arrive in 16 hours. The Sorvani had no way to defend themselves, and no Allied fleet could reach them in time. No fleet except for one old frigate that happened to be in the neighborhood. "How far are we from Sorvani space?" Reyes asked. 12 hours at maximum speed, Okonkwo answered. He had arrived on the bridge silently, as he always did. "We would arrive 4 hours before the hegemony fleet." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. One frigate against 47 warships was not a battle, it was a death sentence. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov spoke through the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, I should mention that our shields are at 60%, and we have exactly 19 torpedoes left, just so everyone knows the full picture." Reyes almost smiled. Volkov had a gift for dark humor at the worst possible moments. Dr. Priya Nair entered the bridge, still wearing her medical coat. "I heard the alert. What's happening?" "The Sorvani need help," Reyes said simply. "We're the only ones who can give it." Nair looked at the tactical display showing the enemy fleet composition. Her face went pale, but she did not look away. "I see." There was a Sorvani diplomat on board. His name was Reneth, and he had been traveling to a peace conference when the Persistent picked him up from a damaged transport vessel. He stood in the doorway now, his tall gray form trembling slightly. "Captain Reyes," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "That is my homeworld, my family is there, my children." Reyes met his eyes. "I know. You cannot fight that fleet. Your ship would be destroyed in minutes." "Probably," Reyes agreed. Reneth stepped closer. "Then why are you even considering this?" It was a fair question. The Persistent had 89 crew members, 89 lives that would almost certainly end if they answered this call. There was no logical reason to go, no strategic advantage, no chance of victory. Reyes stood and faced her crew. "I'm not going to order anyone to do this. What I'm asking goes beyond duty, beyond orders. The Sorvani are not our people. This is not our fight. If we turn around right now, no one would blame us." She paused, looking at each face in turn. "But they asked for help, and we're the only ones who heard them." Amara spoke first. "I didn't join the fleet to run away from people who need us." Okonkwo nodded slowly. "We took an oath to protect the innocent. The oath didn't specify which species." One by one, the crew members on the bridge voiced their agreement. The vote spread through the ship via intercom. In the engine room, Volkov's team said yes. In the medical bay, the nurses and doctors said yes. In the crew quarters, off-duty personnel woke from their sleep to say yes. 89 people, not a single no. Reneth watched this happen with something like shock on his alien face. You would die for strangers, for people you have never met. Reyes turned back to her chair. Amara set course for Sorvani Prime, maximum speed. Course laid in, Captain. Okonkwo, I want tactical options on my screen within the hour. Volkov, get those shields as high as they'll go. Nair, prepare the medical bay for casualties. The crew moved with purpose now. Fear was still there, but it had been pushed aside by something stronger. Something that humans had carried with them since they first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Reneth remained on the bridge, still trying to understand. Captain, please, why would you do this? Diana Reyes looked at him with those tired, honest eyes. Because you asked for help, she said, and we were close enough to hear. The Persistent jumped to hyperspace, racing toward a battle it could not win, crewed by people who had chosen to go anyway. In the darkness between stars, one small ship carried the weight of hope for an entire world. Sorvani Prime was beautiful from orbit. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, broken by green continents and white clouds that swirled in gentle patterns. It looked peaceful. It looked like a world that had never known war. The hegemony fleet surrounding it looked like death itself. 47 warships hung in formation around the planet. Destroyers, cruisers, and at the center, the massive command ship of Supreme Commander Drelith. Each vessel was built for one purpose, to break worlds that refused to submit. The Persistent dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. On the bridge, Amara Diallo counted the enemy ships 3 times, hoping she had made a mistake. She had not. 47 confirmed, she reported, her voice steady despite everything. They're in a standard blockade formation around the planet. Captain Reyes studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were spread in a wide net, designed to catch anyone trying to escape. It was a formation meant for intimidation, not combat. Drelith expected the Sorvani to surrender without a fight. He had not expected company. They've detected us, Okonkwo said. The command ship is hailing. Put it through. The view screen flickered, and Supreme Commander Drelith appeared. He was a Vorath, a species known for their cruelty and their love of conquest. His scaled face twisted into something that might have been amusement. A human ship, he said slowly. One human ship, is this a joke? Reyes remained seated. No joke, Commander. I'm Captain Diana Reyes of the UES Persistent. You are in violation of galactic treaty by threatening a neutral world. Drelith laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Treaties mean nothing to the hegemony. The Sorvani refused our generous offer of protection. Now they will learn the cost of that refusal. The Sorvani are under human protection now. The laughter stopped. Drelith leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. You have 1 ship, Captain. I have 47. Do you understand mathematics? I understand that you're still talking instead of shooting. That tells me you're not sure what we might do. For a long moment, Drelith said nothing. Then he smiled again, showing rows of sharp teeth. You have 1 hour to leave this system. After that, I will destroy your ship and everyone on it. Consider this a gift. The transmission ended. Volkov's voice came through the intercom immediately. Captain, I don't want to question your diplomatic skills, but I think you just made him angry. Good, Reyes replied. Angry people make mistakes. Everyone, listen carefully. We have 1 hour. I don't intend to waste it. The next 60 minutes were controlled chaos. Okonkwo worked with the navigation team to plot 200 microjump coordinates throughout the enemy formation. The Persistent could not match the hegemony ships in firepower, but she was small and fast. She could jump short distances within a battle, appearing and disappearing before the enemy could target her. Volkov pushed the shields to 70% through methods he refused to explain to anyone. Nair converted storage rooms into emergency medical stations and trained every crew member in basic first aid. Amara programmed the communication systems to broadcast on all frequencies, so anything they said would be heard across the entire sector. Renith found Reyes in her ready room, staring at a photograph of her family back on Earth. "Captain," he said quietly, "I have been trying to understand your people since I came aboard this ship. I still do not." She looked up. "What don't you understand? You are going to die here, all of you. You know this, and yet your crew is laughing. I passed the engine room and heard them making jokes. How is this possible?" Reyes considered the question. "Humans have a saying. We don't get to choose how we die, but we get to choose how we face it. My crew chose to face it together, doing something that matters. That makes the fear smaller. But it does not make the death smaller." "No," she agreed, "it doesn't." The hour ended. On the view screen, the hegemony fleet began to move, 47 ships advancing toward one. Reyes stood. "All hands battle stations. This is the captain speaking." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was calm and clear. "They expect us to run. They expect us to die quickly. They expect us to be a footnote in history, a minor inconvenience on their way to conquest." Around the ship, crew members listened. "Let's disappoint them." She sat back in her chair and gripped the armrests. "Okonkwo, execute attack pattern Alpha. All weapons fire at will." The Persistent surged forward, one small flame flying straight into the heart of darkness. On the planet below, millions of Sorvani looked up at the sky and watched a single human ship charge an entire armada. And for the first time in their history, they began to believe in miracles. The first 3 hours were chaos. The Persistent blinked through space like a ghost, appearing behind one hegemony destroyer, firing at its engines, then vanishing before the return shots could connect. She reappeared near a cruiser, launched 2 torpedoes at its sensor array, and jumped again before the explosion finished blooming. Okonkwo called out coordinates in a steady rhythm. His fingers flew across the tactical console, calculating jump points faster than the enemy computers could track. He had trained for this his entire career, but he had never expected to use it against such odds. Jump to point 47, fire, jump to point 92, fire, jump to point 115. The bridge crew worked in perfect sync. Amara monitored enemy communications, calling out ship movements before they happened. Volkov rotated shield power to wherever the next attack would land. Nair treated minor injuries without leaving her station. The hegemony fleet fell into confusion. Their formation broke apart as individual captains tried to chase the small ship that kept stinging them. They fired at empty space, hit their own allies, and screamed at each other over open channels. Drelith's voice cut through the noise. "Maintain formation. She is one ship. Coordinate your attacks." But coordination was impossible. The Persistent was everywhere and nowhere. She could not destroy the hegemony vessels, but she could blind them, cripple their sensors, damage their weapons. She was a wasp among giants, too small to kill but impossible to ignore. 4 hours in, Reyes allowed herself a small smile. They were still alive. Against all logic, they were still alive. Then the first real hit came. A hegemony destroyer had predicted their jump pattern. Its weapons were waiting when the Persistent materialized at point 163. The blast tore through the forward shields and ripped open Deck 4. The ship shuddered. Alarms screamed. Somewhere below, metal twisted and air rushed into the vacuum of space. "Damage report," Reyes commanded. Volkov's voice was grim. "Hull breach on Deck 4. Emergency bulkheads are holding, but we lost the forward observation room. Captain, we lost 12 people." 12, just like that. 12 crew members who had volunteered to be here, who had chosen this fight, gone in a single moment. Reyes gripped her chair until her knuckles turned white. Then she released it. "Continue attack pattern. Okonkwo, adjust our jump sequence. They're learning." "Already on it, Captain." Renith stood at the back of the bridge, forgotten in the chaos. He watched the human crew absorb the news of their dead crewmates without stopping, without breaking. They adjusted, adapted, and kept fighting. A young engineer named Paulo walked past him, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. He was smiling. "Why?" Renith asked, grabbing his arm. "Why are you smiling? Your friends just died." Paulo looked at him with eyes that held both grief and something else, something fierce. "Because we hurt them," he said. "Look at the screen. We've damaged 16 of their ships. 16. One frigate did that. When the story of this battle is told, no one will believe it." He pulled away and returned to his station. The battle continued. Hour 5, Hour 6, Hour 7. The Persistent accumulated wounds like metals, burn marks on her hull, cracked viewports, systems that flickered and failed and were coaxed back to life by Volkov's engineering team. But so did the hegemony fleet. By Hour 8, 23 of their ships had sustained significant damage. 3 were completely disabled, drifting dead in space. The great armada that had come to conquer a peaceful world was bleeding. Drelith broadcast another message. "Captain Reyes, you have proven your courage. Surrender now and I will spare your remaining crew. You have my word." Reyes opened a channel. "Your word means nothing. You came to murder innocents. We came to stop you. There's no middle ground. You cannot win. Surely you understand that." Reyes smiled, and there was nothing kind in it. "I don't need to win, Commander. I just need to keep you busy long enough for the Sorvani to evacuate. Every hour you spend chasing me is an hour they use to save their children. So no, I won't surrender. I'll make you chase me until my ship falls apart, and even then my crew will find a way to annoy you." She cut the transmission. On the planet below, Sorvani families gathered their belongings and fled to underground shelters. Parents carried children. Elderly were helped by the young. They moved quickly but without panic, because somewhere above them, humans were buying them time with their lives. A young Sorvani girl looked up at the sky, watching the flashes of distant battle. "Mother, who are they?" Her mother held her close. "They are humans, little one. They came to help us." "Why?" The mother thought of everything she had heard about humans. Their wars, their chaos, their stubborn refusal to accept the impossible. "Because that is what humans do," she said finally. "They help." On the Persistent, another explosion rocked the ship. Another alarm wailed. Another crew member reported for damage control. And the fight went on. 18 hours into the battle, the Persistent was dying. She moved slower now, her jump drive straining with every short hop through space. Scorch marks covered her hull like black wounds. 3 of her 4 weapon batteries were destroyed. Life support on decks 2 through 5 had failed, forcing the surviving crew into the remaining sections of the ship. Volkov had not slept since the battle began. His engineering team had shrunk from 22 to 11, and those 11 worked with tools in one hand and medical kits in the other. They patched holes with metal from destroyed sections. They rerouted power through systems that were never designed to connect. They performed miracles with nothing but skill and desperation. "Captain," Volkov reported, his voice rough from exhaustion, "we've lost the port engine completely. Starboard engine is running at 40%. Jump drive is still working somehow. I honestly don't know how." Reyes sat in her command chair. She had not moved in 6 hours. Her left arm was wrapped in bandages from a shrapnel wound she barely remembered receiving. "How long can you keep us flying, Dmitri?" There was a pause. "As long as you need me to." It was a lie. They both knew it. But it was a good lie, the kind that kept people going when logic said they should stop. Amara intercepted a new transmission and almost laughed. "Captain, you need to hear this. It's being broadcast across the entire hegemony fleet." She played it on the bridge speakers. "This is Officer Krell of the destroyer Ravager. I am no longer willing to participate in this battle. One human ship has fought us for 18 hours. They should be dead 10 times over, but they keep coming. I joined the hegemony to fight enemies, not to murder helpless civilians while a single frigate makes fools of us all. I am standing down." The transmission ended, but more followed. Other officers, other ships, questioning orders, questioning the war itself. Reneth listened with tears in his gray eyes. "They are defecting because of you." Dr. Nair smiled weakly from her station. "Humans have a talent for being stubborn enough to make others question themselves." The Sorvani diplomat moved closer to her. Throughout the battle, he had helped in the medical bay, carrying supplies, comforting the wounded. He had watched humans die with smiles on their faces, knowing they had bought another minute for strangers. "I asked your captain why humans do this," he said. "She told me you don't know how to stop, but that cannot be the full answer." Nair set down her datapad. Even in the middle of chaos, she took time to explain. That was another human thing Reneth was learning. They always made time for questions. "Have you ever heard of our oceans?" she asked. "I have studied Earth. Your planet is 70% water. Thousands of years ago, before we had technology, humans crossed those oceans in wooden boats. They couldn't see land. They didn't know if land existed on the other side. They just went. They risked death for the possibility of something new." Reneth tried to imagine this. His species was careful, cautious. They planned everything in advance. The idea of sailing into unknown water seemed insane. "Later," Nair continued, "we climbed mountains for no reason except to prove we could. We went to our moon using computers weaker than the device I used to order lunch. We sent probes beyond our solar system, knowing we would never see them reach their destination." "But why?" "Because we needed to know what was there. Because the challenge existed. Because somewhere deep in our DNA, we have a voice that says, maybe you can whenever logic says you cannot. That voice is why we're here. It's why we're still fighting when any reasonable species would have surrendered hours ago." An explosion rocked the ship. More alarms, more damage. Nair returned to treating wounded crew members. "We're not braver than other species, Reneth. We're just worse at accepting limits." The Sorvani moved to help her, handing her supplies, cleaning wounds. He had never imagined working alongside aliens to fight for his homeworld. He had never imagined any of this. On the bridge, Reyes received a damage report that made her close her eyes for a long moment. 41 crew members dead. 48 still alive. The Persistent had started with 89 souls. More than half were gone, sacrificed one by one in a battle they could not win. But on the planet below, the evacuations continued. 80% of the population had reached the underground shelters. If the Persistent could hold for just 4 more hours, the Sorvani would be safe. 4 more hours, it seemed like forever. Reyes opened a ship-wide channel. "This is the captain. I know you're tired. I know you're scared. I know some of you have lost friends today. I have too." She paused, gathering strength. "In 4 hours, the Sorvani will complete their evacuation. 4 hours and every child on that planet will be safe. I'm asking you for 4 more hours. 4 hours to prove that the universe is better than those who would destroy it. Can you give me that?" The response came from every section of the ship. "Yes, Captain." Reyes opened her eyes. "Okonkwo, take us back in." The Persistent turned toward the enemy fleet and resumed her impossible fight. 31 hours. The Persistent was a ghost ship crewed by ghosts. Half the crew was dead. The survivors moved through flickering corridors, stepping over debris, ignoring the cold that seeped in through cracked hull plates. They had stopped counting the damage hours ago. The ship flew on determination alone, held together by emergency welds and the stubborn refusal of her crew to let her die. Reyes had finally left the command chair. Not by choice. A chunk of ceiling had fallen during the last attack, opening a gash in her scalp that painted her face red. Dr. Nair had bandaged her head while Reyes continued giving orders, then forced her to drink water and eat a ration bar. "You need to rest, Captain," Nair said. "I'll rest when they do." Reyes gestured at the bridge crew, all of whom looked ready to collapse. "Captain," Amara reported, her voice cracking from exhaustion, "the Sorvani Planetary Council is broadcasting. They want to speak with you." Reyes turned to the viewscreen. A group of Sorvani elders appeared, their gray faces marked with worry and something else. Hope. "Captain Reyes," the eldest spoke, "we have completed 90% of our evacuation. Our people are safe in the shelters. We will reach full completion in approximately 2 hours. 2 hours, so close. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid," the elder continued. "You and your crew have given us time when we had none. Whatever happens now, the Sorvani people will never forget the humans who stood between us and extinction." Reyes felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders. "Just save your people. That's all the thanks we need." The transmission ended. Volkov's voice came through the intercom, and for the first time it carried fear. "Captain, we have a problem. The reactor is failing. I can keep us running for maybe 2 more hours, but after that..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. 2 hours, the same amount of time the Sorvani needed. Okonkwo pulled Reyes aside, speaking quietly so the rest of the bridge couldn't hear. "Captain, even if the reactor holds, we have no torpedoes left. 1 functional weapon battery. Shields at 12%. We can't keep fighting." "I know. If we continue, we won't just die. We'll die uselessly. The hegemony will brush us aside and attack the planet anyway." Reyes looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "What are you suggesting?" Okonkwo hesitated. He was a tactical officer. His job was to find solutions. The solution he had found made him sick. "The Persistent still has engines. We still have mass. If we rammed the hegemony command ship at full speed, the impact would destroy them both. Without their command ship, the fleet would scatter. The Sorvani would have time to finish their evacuation. It was a suicide mission, a final attack with no return." Reyes considered it. The math was cold but clear. 37 crew members were still alive. If they rammed the command ship, all 37 would die. But if they didn't, the Sorvani evacuations would fail and millions would be killed. 37 lives against millions. "Gather the crew," Reyes said quietly. "Everyone who can walk. I won't make this decision for them." They assembled in the cargo bay, the largest intact space remaining on the ship. 37 people, burned and bleeding and exhausted beyond measure. They stood or sat depending on their injuries, but every eye was fixed on their captain. Reyes explained the situation without softening it. The reactor was failing. They couldn't keep fighting, but they could still save the Sorvani if they were willing to pay the ultimate price. When she finished, silence filled the room. Okonkwo spoke first. "I didn't come here to survive, Captain. I came here to give them time. If this is how we give them the last 2 hours they need, I'm ready." One by one the others nodded. Some cried, some smiled, some simply stood a little straighter, accepting what was coming. Reneth pushed through the crowd. "Wait, please wait." He faced the human crew, this strange species he had spent 31 hours learning to love. "Before you do this, let me send a message to my people. Let me tell them what you did. Let me make sure the galaxy knows." Reyes nodded. Amara opened a channel, all frequencies, let everyone hear. Reneth composed himself, then he spoke. "I am Reneth of Sorvani Prime. For 31 hours, I have watched a single human ship fight against impossible odds. They came here knowing they would die. They stayed here knowing they would die. And now they prepare to sacrifice themselves completely so that my people might live." His voice broke, but he continued. "I have seen what humans truly are. They are not conquerors. They are not warriors seeking glory. They are guardians. They protect those who cannot protect themselves. They stand when others run. they give when others take. He looked at Reyes, at Okonkwo, at every face in the room. Remember the persistent. Remember her crew. Remember what humans are capable of when they choose to be something greater than themselves. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, billions heard his words. Reyes put her hand on Reneth's shoulder. Thank you. No, he whispered, thank you. The crew returned to their stations. The persistent turned toward the Hegemony command ship, her engines straining, her hull groaning. On the bridge, Reyes sat in her chair one last time. All hands, this is the captain. It has been an honor. The persistent began her final charge. The persistent accelerated toward death. Every remaining system pushed beyond safe limits. The hull screamed in protest. Warning lights flashed across every console. Ignored by crew members who had accepted what was coming. On the Hegemony command ship, Supreme Commander Drelith watched the approaching frigate with something close to disbelief. 31 hours of battle and the humans were still coming. Not retreating, not surrendering, coming. All ships destroy that vessel, he commanded. Now. The Hegemony fleet opened fire. Beams of energy streaked through space, tearing into the persistent from every angle. Sections of hull ripped away. Entire compartments vanished in flames. The ship that had danced through their formation for hours now flew straight, absorbing punishment that would have killed her 100 times over. But she did not stop. On the bridge, Reyes gripped her armrests as the ship shook apart around her. Okonkwo was slumped over his console, unconscious from a head wound. Amara kept broadcasting their position, their speed, their final message to the galaxy. She wanted everyone to see this moment. 2 minutes to impact. The command ship loomed larger on the viewscreen, its massive form filling the darkness. Drelith's flagship, the heart of the Hegemony fleet. When it died, the entire operation would collapse. 1 minute to impact. Then Amara's voice cut through the chaos, carrying wonder instead of fear. Captain, long-range sensors, ships inbound, hundreds of them. Reyes forced her eyes to focus on the display. New signatures were appearing at the edge of the system. 100, 200, more arriving every second. The Allied fleet. They had received Amara's message. They had heard Reneth's broadcast. They had come. The cavalry had arrived. 200 Allied warships dropped out of hyperspace in a wave of light and fury. Human ships. Sorvani medical vessels that had been stationed at distant colonies. Ships from 6 other species, all responding to the story of one frigate that refused to fall. Admiral Catherine Brooks commanded the lead vessel. Her voice boomed across all frequencies. Hegemony forces, this is the Allied fleet. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Your choice. The Hegemony fleet, already battered and exhausted, began to break apart. Ships that had questioned their orders now fled openly. Captains who had watched the persistent survive the impossible decided they wanted no part of this fight anymore. Drelith screamed orders that no one followed. His fleet scattered like frightened animals, jumping to hyperspace in random directions. Within minutes, the blockade that had threatened Sorvani Prime simply ceased to exist. The persistent drifted, her engines finally dead, her mission complete. All hands, Reyes whispered into the intercom, though she wasn't sure anyone could still hear. Stand down, we made it. Then she closed her eyes and let the darkness take her. She woke in a medical bay that was not her own. White walls, clean sheets, the soft hum of advanced equipment keeping her alive. Admiral Brooks sat beside her bed. Captain Reyes, welcome back. Reyes tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. Brooks handed her water. Your ship is being towed to Sorvani Prime, the Admiral continued. She'll never fly again, but the Sorvani have asked to keep her. They want to place her in orbit as a memorial. My crew, Reyes managed. 34 survivors. Everyone we pulled from the wreckage is going to live. Brooks paused. You lost 55 good people, Diana, I'm sorry. 55. Rays felt the weight of each name, each face. They had volunteered knowing the odds. They had died standing between strangers and extinction. Was it worth it, she asked, though she already knew the answer. The Sorvani completed their evacuation. 100%. Not a single civilian lost. Brooks leaned forward. You held that fleet for 34 hours with one ship. The entire galaxy is talking about it. Species that never trusted humans before are asking to join alliances. You didn't just save Sorvani Prime, Diana. You changed how the universe sees us. Weeks later, Rays stood on Sorvani Prime, looking up at the sky. The Persistent hung in orbit above, visible as a tiny star. The Sorvani had cleaned her hull and filled her with lights, transforming a broken warship into a constellation. Reneth stood beside her. He had been appointed ambassador for human-Sorvani relations, a job he took very seriously. Children sing songs about your ship now, he said. They learn your names in school. In 500 years, the Sorvani will still remember what you did. Rays didn't know how to respond to that. She had never wanted to be remembered. She had just wanted to help. A young Sorvani girl approached them, holding her mother's hand. She looked up at Rays with wide, curious eyes. Are you the human captain? Rays knelt down to her level. I am. Why didn't you run away? My mother says you could have run away and been safe. Why did you stay? It was the same question Reneth had asked 34 hours into hell. Rays thought about all the answers she could give. Duty, honor, stubbornness. But looking at this child, alive because of choices made by people she would never meet, Rays found a simpler truth. Because some things are worth standing for, she said, and some people are worth dying for, even if you just met them. The girl considered this. Then she smiled and hugged Rays tightly before running back to her mother. Reneth watched her go. Your species confuses me, Captain. You are violent and peaceful, selfish and generous, reckless and calculated. How do you contain so many contradictions? Rays stood and looked up at her ship, now a memorial written in light across the Sorvani sky. We don't contain them, she said. We just pick which ones to follow when it matters most. Across the galaxy, the story spread. One human ship against 47, 34 hours of impossible survival. And when the moment came to die, they chose to save strangers instead. Other species heard the tale and wondered what it meant. Some feared what humans could do when pushed to the edge. Others admired their stubborn courage. But all of them remembered. One ship, one crew, one choice. And they refused to fall.